We're now in the middle of July, and a lot of the free agency craze is starting to die down because most of the best players available have already signed new deals either with their current teams or with new teams for a fresh start. The thing is though, that there are still quite a few talented players that can make a big difference in an NBA rotation that are still not on a roster, and are available to be signed as we speak, which brings us to today's video. Today we'll be discussing 5 players in particular that are still unsigned free agents that I believe not only can still be on an NBA roster and should still be on an NBA roster, but I know could absolutely still play a strong role in a team's rotation with the skill sets that they bring. These may not be stars or even starters in some cases, but they've proven their worth and should absolutely get scooped up even though they somehow aren't yet. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first free agent that is somehow still available that we'll be discussing today is Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones has gotten better and better every year that he's been in the league, and while last year he was a hot commodity, I'm pretty confused about why he's arguably the best player still available yet unsigned. When he was in Memphis, he was arguably the best backup point guard in the league who provided a steady presence leading the offense with the reserves, and then in the time that Ja Morant would miss time due to injury, he stepped into the starting spot and kept the team afloat because of his hyper-efficient play, smart decision-making skills, and the fact that he can produce without making any mistakes throughout a game. He's not the flashiest player in the world, but he's just an incredibly fundamentally sound point guard that knows how to serve the role of a point guard, initiating the offense and keeping things flowing. He's also coming off of the best season of his career in Washington, where he averaged a career high in both points and assists per game, while shooting a career best from both the field and from 3, making over 41% of his threes. He's legitimately good enough to be a starting point guard in the league, and there are definitely teams out there in need of an upgrade at that spot, so the fact that he's sitting around waiting to be signed right now is a bit baffling. The next player we'll be discussing today that is somehow still unsigned is Trent Jr. Trent Jr. is definitely worthy of being on this list as one of the best players left available in free agency, but the reason why he's on here is more of his own doing than most of the other players that we'll be discussing today. See, Trent may have shot himself in the foot a bit by overvaluing himself and taking a gamble that did not pay off, because the Raptors, who he has been playing for over the last 4 years, actually offered him a contract valued at about $15 million per year, and he turned it down, telling them that he would be looking to get a pay raise on his next contract in the ballpark of about $25 million per season, and that really threw the Raptors off. Trent has now had to learn the hard way that NBA teams don't value him at $25 million per year, and realistically, the $10 to $15 million per year range was much more accurate, so now he's stuck having to admit that he was wrong and crawl back with his tail between his legs. Trent is a very effective volume 3-point shooter, taking about 7 threes per game and knocking them down at a 39% clip. He's averaged between 13 and 18 points per game over each of the last 3 seasons, and guys with his skill set always hold value, just not to the extent that he initially thought. He should still have plenty of suitors, he's just going to have to be more realistic about his pursuit. The next player that is somehow still unsigned at this point is Canard. We just discussed Trent Jr., who has been a valuable scorer from beyond the arc throughout his career, but Canard is easily the best shooter left on the market overall, and he's one of the best shooters of the basketball in the whole league since he's been drafted. Canard is a career 44% three-point shooter that has led the league in three-point percentage twice. He made at least 44% of his threes in 4 straight seasons, and gives you about 11 points per game. The way Canard became available as a free agent was because the Grizzlies declined his team option to bring him back, freeing themselves of the $14.8 million they would have owed him to create some breathing room financially. But now they apparently still want to bring him back, just for a bit less, which may be a tough ask. Canard could still command a similar contract with his pure shooting prowess and an ability to handle the ball in a secondary role in spurts, but there's just no way it should take this long to find one of the league's best shooters a home. The next player that is somehow still also not signed at this point is Isaac Okoro. Okoro has developed as a very useful defensive stopper on the wing, and can comfortably handle several different types of matchups across positions, and for the most part, in his 4-year career with Cleveland so far, he's been the team's starting small forward. The Cavaliers have emerged as one of the league's best defenses over the last few seasons, and Okoro has absolutely contributed to that in a big way. Offensively, there are some concerns about his lack of versatility as a scorer, and he's still not much of a ball handler or creator off the dribble, which is likely why teams aren't going out of their way to try to sign him right now, but that doesn't mean he isn't improving, because he absolutely is. He gives you a modest 9 points per game, but every single season 4 years in a row, he has improved as a 3-point shooter with his 3-point percentage, showing that he works hard at becoming a useful 3-and-D player, and last season, he knocked down 39% of his shots from deep, which is very above average. He's currently a restricted free agent, meaning that the Cavaliers can match any other offer he receives and choose to keep him if they want to, but the fact that he hasn't even gotten any other real offers to this point is a bit confusing. And finally, the last player that we will be discussing today that is somehow still available as a free agent is Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward was acquired by the Thunder midway through last season, and his time in Oklahoma City was as uninspiring as it gets, which has made everyone forget what Hayward was as a player before. The Thunder were the 1 seed in contention last year, so they already pretty much had their rotation set, and it was hard for Hayward to break into what they had going on, but prior to being traded there, Hayward was averaging about 15 points per game on above-average shooting splits in Charlotte, and could clearly still produce as a secondary scoring option in a team's rotation. He's a reliable spot-up shooter, he moves well without the ball, and he doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands to create opportunities for himself as a scorer, so as a player who will also only realistically be seeking a minimum contract, he's absolutely low-risk, high-potential reward type of signing, especially for a team with a weak bench in need of a scoring boost. Teams like the Orlando Magic, Miami Heat, Cleveland Cavaliers, and Los Angeles Lakers were all playoff teams last season with either mediocre or subpar offenses, and for the most part they are still in need of more offensive firepower, so it would honestly shock me if Hayward's tenure in Oklahoma City throws everyone completely off his trail when he was scoring 15 points per game in the first half of just last season. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below which teams you think should sign these players. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.